This is the strongest John Deere field in years.
That may be true, but it doesn't mean that it's not a weak field by our normal standards.
Oh, here, Jared, throw up the screen already. I'll show you how to build a lineup, all right? Here's what you do. So where's Ben Coles at?
At Mayo Experience.
Welcome to Pat Mayo Experience presented by Underdog. This is the John Deere Classic DraftKings picks, building lineups, going over ownership, getting you ready for DraftKings and DFS. This week, Alex Blickle from FTN Fantasy on the line with me. Alex, did you know that we have Taylor Montgomery, Sam Stevens, and Nico Echeverria all WD from this tournament already?
Yeah, it was a weak field to begin with, and it's getting weaker and thinner. So we've got our work cut out for us to actually find some good guys.
Oh, I doubt that. This is the strongest John Deere field in years.
That may be true, but it doesn't mean that it's not a weak field by our normal standards.
Oh, here, Jared, throw up the screen already. I'll show you how to build a lineup. All right, here's what you do. So where's Ben Coles at? Well, we'll get Ben Coles on
73.
the list. 73. In fact, I thought he was like cheaper than that, but here we are. So we'll get Ben Coles into the lineup. I mean, we'll just take a bunch of guys who can't putt. That always wins, right?
This is a good place for it, actually. Yeah, it obviously we'll end up talking course fit, but like one of the very first things that I think is worth mentioning about TPC Dare Run is it's not the putting contest that people think it is.
Well, it is a putting contest. It's just not predictive who's going to make those putts.
Right. And it's, I think a good way to say it is like at a lot of birdie fests that we do consider putting contests, it's like there's just not that much of a challenge either off the tee or into the greens. And so just about everyone's going to have a number of birdie opportunities. And the question is just who makes the most of those birdie opportunities. And that's how it becomes a putting contest. But at this course, those birdie opportunities are earned. They're not just given to you. So you do have to drive the ball accurately and hit some really quality iron shots to actually get those birdie opportunities that you know so much of the field is going to get.
How does this lineup lose? Griffin, Goddard, Nakajima, Smotherman, Hautong, Ben Coles, boom, give me the money.
I think it's a pretty strong lineup, but there are many ways that this lineup loses because all six of these guys are capable of doing some pretty knuckleheaded stuff that'll sink you pretty quickly.
That's true, but I like where your head's at with this. I think that accuracy does get underrated here. The issue I have with accuracy with this ends up becoming it's less than driver. So someone like Goddard, for example, I mean, driver usage is up big time at this course over the past 5 years. I think I had it up. Let's see. We can just trundle over to the old rabbit hole for a second. I was looking at this on the research show, but that was like hours ago. How could I ever be able to remember that? Let's see. Yeah. Driver usage is at 75%, 76% at this course a year ago, up from 63% 5 years ago. People are using driver here more often than your average PGA course now, which seems kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I love this stat, and it's really cool that you can pull this. It shows a like tour wide trend, but I do think it's also a little bit specific to this course. And one of the things that we see here is guys are going to get a ton of wedges, and so I think the extra driver usage is like just trying to get one or two really scoreable wedge shots per round.
How important do you think that we're seeing with like obviously accuracy, you want to be playing from inside the fairway. Do you think you can get away with playing out of the rough here?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty similar to the Travelers this past week, which is like you do need to be driving the ball well, but it's less about how penalized you are when you miss, and it's more about just like if you feel like you're going to need to shoot 4, 5, 6 under par per day to really keep pace with the leaders, it's a lot easier to do that when you have 10 opportunities from the fairway into a par 4 rather than 6 or 5 or something like that. So it's more just about like every time you hit a fairway, every time you hit, or sometimes it's not about hitting the fairway. Sometimes it's about missing in the right spot in the rough. So, you have a good angle to a back pin with a soft green, and like the left rough might actually be better to a back right pin than the middle of the fairway. So it's about putting yourself in position as often as possible to really be aggressive and go after those birdies that you're going to have to make.
Well, you say it's not a putting contest, but I went and searched the year that Michael Kim won here. And while he was 4th in ball striking, he happened to gain, I believe it was 13 and a half strokes putting. That's good, right?
That's pretty good. Yeah. And I think the important thing to realize from that is there's nothing inherent about these greens that allow for that. It's just if you were consistently putting yourself, let's say, anywhere between 8 and 15 feet, every single putt that you hit, you have like a 50% chance or a 33% chance of making that putt and gaining a considerable amount of strokes with that putt. Whereas if you get to a course where it's harder to get the ball close, like every time you hit the ball to 30 feet, it's really, really rare that you're actually going to make that 30-footer. So time and time again, you're just gaining 0 strokes on the field by 2-putting over and over and over again.
Yeah, there is a through line of player that's obviously won here. So Spieth won here 11 years ago now. That's wild in a sense when he chipped in on 17 to go. I thought it was Ken Duke he beat in the playoff. Turned out it was Tom Gillies or Tom Gillis. I think it depends on where you're from, how you pronounce that. But either way, I totally forgot that guy ever existed. But outside of that, like you had your Strickers and your Zach Johnsons. Now, when they won, and Stricker won this 3 years in a row, obviously, he was probably the best player in the field that year, and ditto with Zach Johnson back when they won, but they have a specific skill set. They're amazing with their wedges. They're fantastic off the tee in terms of accuracy, and both those guys could putt from time to time. Stricker much better than Zach Johnson over the course of his career, but I mean, Zach Johnson won 2 majors, so can't really chirp his putting too much. But then you even look like Ryan Moore is a former winner here. Lucas Glover, JT Poston, who won a lot? Davis Thompson won. He just did everything well that week. And last year was Brian Campbell. Like, what are the 2 things that Brian Campbell does? He's good with his wedges and he hits fairways. That's basically it. Those are the 2 things that he can actually do. So there is a proto Straka one here, and he's that guy as well. Fairways, irons. Hopefully you can make some putts. That there's a very definitive style of player for the winner here. The problem is once you start going past that on the leaderboard, you get your Gotterups and Michael Thorbjornsons, like these younger guys who bomb it, don't quite get over the hump to win. That doesn't mean they're not valuable here.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is a lot of those guys tend to be the guys who are like a little bit more accurate than people realize because they do hit the ball far. And they're also just up and coming talents in what is typically one of the weaker fields of the year. So like those are the guys who are going to be playing for one thing. Like, a young up and coming guy is going to play, especially in an event where he thinks he has a better chance than usual to go get his first win or get his first taste of contention. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And your emphasis on wedges, I think is absolutely true. I have found over the last couple of years, like trying to kind of dive into the approach buckets and figure out, okay, this is the range that the guys are going to hit from this week. So I want to lean into that. Like typically I have not found much predictive value at all from that, but wedge play here is one of those rare instances where really kind of honing in on that one skill set does seem to be maybe even better than looking at approach play as a whole. Cause sometimes like long iron play and wedge play take very different, characteristics, if you will, to be really good at them. And so I do think in that regard, it makes sense to kind of separate those into 2 different skill sets.
Well, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. Is that looking at it? Oh, there's like I even went over on the research show this week. Like 50 to 125 is weirdly over-indexed this week versus what you would normally see at a PGA Tour event. It's like 23% versus what would normally be 16%. But that range was more than average. The like 100 to 150 was more than average. So instead of being like, well, I need to look at 125 to 150, I just took 50 all the way up to 150 and broke it down to each of those categories, pumped them all in, and just see the guys that are really good across the board with those rather than, well, this guy's really good at this specific proximity range, but he actually sucks 25 yards longer and 25 yards shorter. Don't quite understand how that ends up working out. But if someone is consistently near the top of all 3 of those ranges, chances are they're pretty good with their wedges.
Yes, 100%. And I think to answer your question there, like the way that happens is small sample variance, which is usually why I don't like to kind of go this specific with ranges, because then you just run into this sample size issue. But with wedges, and number one, like you actually do get a bit of a better sample sometimes than when you're trying to look at different long iron buckets. But I also think that one of the keys here this week is like, typically let's say 150 to 200 is like the quote unquote key range. Well, a lot of the time, the longest hitters are going to be longer than that, and they're going to have a bunch from 125 to 175 instead. And then some of the shorter hitters are going to be like 175 to 225. But here, as you mentioned, like even with driver usage way up, it's still under 80%. And so there are still holes where everyone's kind of hitting it to the same area and then all getting that like identical wedge shot in.
So if we just jump over, I can do this pretty easily here, I think. Let's share my screen over at BetSports Golf. Trying to make this easy on myself here. Okay, here we are. So betsportsgolf.com/Mayo. Get yourself the discount up here. So I already had from the research show the 50 to 100 and 100 to 150 loaded in, and that was for the past 3 months. So a very small sample. I put them in again over the last 18 months, as you can see here. I'll click over to off the tee, and I'm just going to pump in driving accuracy. Do you like driving accuracy, or do you like distance from edge of the fairway better?
I would prefer distance from edge of the fairway here.
All right. Well, you know what? We got room to do both. How about
You
that?
know what? Actually, I would prefer good drive percentage.
Really? But then we're doubling down on approach play, aren't we? We're not isolating that one skill.
Can you hover over good drive percentage? Let's see what it says.
On
Number
par
of fairways
fours
hit
and five, the
plus
numbers
the
of
number.
fairways hit
Okay.
plus the number of greens in regulation.
I thought good drive percentage would be defined differently. So yeah, let's go with distance from the edge of the fairway.
Yeah, and we'll put in DAC and weight that as well, just to see what we have to mix it up. Usually the guys that are good at one are good at the other, as you can see here, except for like Preston Stout, 6th in driving accuracy, but when he misses, I mean, he's not like the worst guy in here. He's 49th in distance of edge of the fairway, which is really weird. Do you find that with like super accurate guys that when they miss, they just miss by a ton?
Certainly not all really accurate guys, but I think it probably means that like his swing's really dependent on timing, and usually it syncs up. But when it doesn't, that means the face is several degrees off instead of 1 degree off, like most missed fairways.
Oh, I went. So the range at my course has been closed for. Well, it's not closed. You can only hit up to 150 yards right now because they're redoing it. So I can't work on driver there. And I was having all these driving issues. And I finally went to like a different driving range, the one that's closer to my house, and just completely worked out what I was doing with figured out what the issue was with my driver. So that's good news.
What was the issue?
I just wasn't going back all the way.
That'll do it sometimes. Yeah.
Just like, I'm going to try. It's like, let me try to hit this as hard as I can. So I did like a complete like Patrick Reed whip type swing. I was like, oh yeah, that's how I'm like supposed to swing. Not try to like fancy it down, like getting to a point at the top, trying to drop my hands, get my hips in sequence. If I just do it in one big motion and go like all the way back, then just my body does what I needed to do anyway. Stupid.
Yeah, that reminds me of the conversation we had earlier in the year about Gary Woodland's swing after he won in Houston, where we were talking about like how he gets his hands really high so that everything can just kind of drop into place and then fire. So love that callback. And it's funny. I was just in Pennsylvania this past week playing golf with my dad, and he kind of had the opposite issue, or no, I wouldn't say the opposite issue, just a different issue where like he was trying to move his whole body back with the backswing instead of letting his hands and shoulder turn kind of then result in hip turn once he ran out of room with his shoulder turn. And he was trying to do it all at once, but then you don't get any separation in the lower body, and you don't get that like rubber band effect when you come through that's obviously so kind of power generative.
Here's the worst part though. So I figured out the driver, and I spent all this time working on it. Then I started hitting my 5-wood and my hybrid, and at the range that was working fine. But when I got to the course to play, all of a sudden I couldn't hit an 8-iron anymore. I was like, I can't remember how to hit down. I've been trying to hit up on this driver for like 3 straight hours. Like I lost my iron swing until like the 6th hole.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you are working on either hitting up into the ball with driver or down into the ball with irons, what are you like? What's the thought that's guiding that for you?
For me, I mean, a lot of it is just ball position. For me, that the farther I can move it up, and ideally, I would just like to try to take the same swing at everything and just have a different low point of where the club is actually interacting with the ball. That with my driver, if I can move it up, like if I have it back even inside my left heel, being a right-handed golfer, I feel like I will be hitting down on the ball. I have a very steep swing to begin with that I really do need to jack it up and actively like get a tilt going. Like if I'm coming back through, shift my hips forward and just really work on keeping my chest down, left shoulder up, like putting my foot in place and just like whipping through it. So it's like up like that. And I feel like if I start doing that too much, that I lose the ability to like really make sure that I'm coming down on the ball with an iron, that, or I get way too steep and then I can't hit the ball anywhere. I just go straight into the ground.
That's kind of why I was asking. Cause I think this is something that I have found to be helpful, and I would suggest testing out on the range. But if it's one of those things where like you can test it on the range, and 3 swings in, you'll know if you want to just totally abandon this idea. But I would recommend at least trying to think about it less about what your hands are doing, what your shoulders are doing, and more about the pressure that you're putting into your lead foot. So you swing right-handed, correct?
Correct.
So think about the pressure that you're putting into your left foot at impact. When you are trying to hit up on the ball with driver, think about pushing the ground away, and that's going to pull your hip up. It's going to open up your chest a little bit more. And then with irons, when you want to go down into the ball, think about sitting into that left foot and not pushing away from the floor. Almost like, when you jump and land, you're absorbing the kind of impact with your feet. And you want that kind of thought. You're absorbing your body going down into the ball with your left foot when you're hitting down into an iron. And I like that sort of thought because it kind of takes everything that's going through your mind. Like you just talked about like 3 or 4 different things going on at once to hit up on the ball, and compresses that into just one thought that's very easy to not just think about, but actually feel.
I like that. I will try that. So I push into the ground like I'm trying to dig in with irons and push away while I'm driving.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, you're sitting into your left foot with irons, and you're pushing the ground away from you with driver.
Okay, this I can try out, and I will know after a few swings. Like I don't like this. This is too uncomfortable.
Yes, exactly.
All right, here are the results of that quick one I threw in. Now, this isn't to say like these are the best plays of the week, but I think these are the styles of players that you want to go at here. It's actually very reminiscent of the model that I built out for Port Royal during the swing season, because I just recognize I bet on Kanaya that week. I bet on Paul Peterson that week. I don't know if I want to bet on those guys this time in a field that's way stronger than what we saw there, but you got Peterson, Ben Coles, Glover, who's a former winner, Damon, Zach Blair. Zach Blair is maddening to me. I don't quite understand. It feels like I just randomly see him and he's doing really well in tournaments.
Yeah,
and I don't understand that at all.
I think he's like in with the network and the guys on the broadcast, and so every single time he's playing well, they want to show everybody, hey, look, our guy Zach Blair is playing well, and when he's not, they don't feel any need whatsoever to show that he's even in the tournament.
So other than that, you got like Carson Young, and then you start getting into names that are potential here. I mentioned Smotherman earlier. He ranks out really highly. Berger, who Jeff actually already bet. I did not expect him to be ranking out this highly. Tom Kim. Putnam is someone. Do you think that there is any sort of Amex crossover here? Because I just noticed a lot of guys that have done well at Amex have just won this tournament.
Yeah, and yes, because remember, Amex is when John Rahm famously said that it was a putting contest, and like every single show that I've ever done since that point, I've made the point that he's wrong. It's not a putting contest. It's a ball striking place, and particularly it's accuracy and approach. And I think there's even more like around the green signal there, because like short game is required to help really score, and that's been true at times in the past year at TPC Deer Run. It was not true last year, so I'm kind of backing off that statement a little bit in that regard. But yeah, there's definitely crossover in that sense that it's one of those birdie fests that is not at all a putting contest.
What I wanted to get to here after putting all these through was try to find a guy that is not only good in the short-term success from what we've been looking at, but also good long-term, and to see if they match up well. Because even when we went back to that total, we got a couple goobers based on pretty small samples at the top. After you get through them, you have like last year's 1 and 2, Griot and Brian Campbell. Ben Silverman is up there. Where's my guy? Chandler Blanchet was someone I was looking at. I bet Blades Brown. That's the only bet that I have in as of this recording. Davis Thompson, former winner. Kevin Yu. There's Bridgman, who I like this week. Zadenhout, who has a second place finish here. Doug Gim was the first round leader here a year ago. So I do think that there's something to this skill set. Whether there's more to that we need to add or think about, I think this is where we want to start. We'll sort by one of these, the 100 to 150 opportunities. I have these like inside 15 feet opportunities. I like that more than like just straight proximity buckets, like who's hitting it somewhat close on these. Like Blades Brown cleans up in this area. Obviously small sample, but Tom Kim, Ben Coles, just greens across the board, both short-term, long-term, and both of the wider ranges that we're looking at here. Paul Peterson does rate out pretty well on all of these too. I wonder why Paul Peterson sucks. He can't putt, can he?
No, he cannot. The Blades thing's really interesting too, because it makes me wonder, like, obviously there are courses where you're going to get a lot of opportunities here from this range. And so with a guy like Blades, does he show up here because this is a skill that he's really, really good at? Or does he show up here because he happened to be on his A game at the Amex, and that's where the vast majority of these shots are coming from for him. I don't know the answer, but that's what it makes me wonder.
I don't think so. Like he has at the end, I mean, the Amex isn't even one of his top 3 finishes of the year.
That's fair. So
Because
yeah,
he had such a disastrous final round when he was there. But like his past 3 of the past 4 times out now, he's been playing on Corn Ferry mainly. And to update, he has 5 top 20s on Corn Ferry in his past 7 starts, a second and a third. But like he's not getting any credit from these ranges from his third place in Puerto Rico because there's no shot link data. There's only 2 rounds of shot link data from American Express. So it's mainly like Byron Nelson, Myrtle Beach, and Valspar, where he just crushed everyone on approach. He just crushes on approach.
yeah, this seems like a really kind of great boomer bust play here with Blades then.
Yeah, and if he can hit some fairways, which he doesn't hit a ton of fairways, maybe he can figure that out this week. He has the 2 other skills that you want. The approach play, especially the wedge play, is fire, and he putts.
Yes. So yeah, I think like I would very much put Blades in this category of someone who like could be an explosive scorer this week, and that makes him very interesting, especially from a DraftKings perspective.
Was there anyone else on that list that we were looking at that you think is just like, oh yeah, like that's a pretty good play? And I wasn't thinking about him.
Yeah, the guy I was on last year, I think I might be interested again with Kuchar. Certainly somebody that we expect to hit a bunch of fairways and give himself these opportunities. And we haven't seen much of him at all this year, so I certainly can't speak to the form that he's in. But just from like a pure fit perspective, I do think he's pretty interesting. And the other thing there is like I don't really care what his recent form necessarily looks like because he probably hasn't been. That's better than I expected. So like, yeah, I mean, he's got 3 top 25s in his last 4 events, and I think that like I was about to say that even if he's in really bad form, he hasn't played courses that fit his game the way this course does, and yet he has actually been okay. And so now, obviously, like that has been just a red hot putter in those last 2 events, but Myrtle Beach was kind of an all around good week. So I think I might go back to Kuchar as well.
Okay, that's interesting. I would not have considered Kuchar as someone that I would have wanted to be on here, but hey, who knows?
He's one of those guys where like you look at how good he is with mid irons and long irons, and it's like, oh, there's not a whole lot to like here. And then you look at his wedges, it's like, oh God, he's one of the best wedge players on tour, and that's kind of been who he is for the last 10 years or so. And you know, I think a lot of the times we think of like guys who do well on long courses versus short courses being all about their distance off the tee, and obviously he is really short off the tee. But I think with him, it's more just about can he get those scoring opportunities with his wedges, and the more of those he gets, the better off he's going to be.
Let's go through the ranges, and we'll start at the top here with Goddard, Griffin, and Keith Mitchell are your 3 guys above $10,000. And this is what I want to do and just talk about these ranges today in this sense that if we're building, let's say, because you don't build that many lineups, I'm probably just going to build the lineups on the show, maybe generate a few more later on, that if I want to hammer down here, like I have specific guys that I like already for this event, regardless of ownership, just guys that I think that are going to play well. But I think assessing it from a DraftKings perspective is a little bit different. I like Keith Mitchell enough. I don't understand how he is $10,000 in this field with some of these names behind him.
Yeah, and as somebody who plays a ton of Keith, like I also have some serious reservations this week because typically when you're playing him at like what was he last week, 7,200 or something like that, 7,100. Like it's very easy to envision a successful week for Keith from a DraftKings perspective where he's not really in contention and he's not potentially winning the tournament for you. He's just giving you a 10th place finish where he's 6th in DraftKings points or something like that. This week when he's $10,000 and clearly one of the better players in the field, it really does worry me just how bad he's been when in contention. Easily the worst contention performance score amongst the guys at the top, certainly of these top 3 guys. And so that's making me hesitate more on Keith than I typically do.
Okay, so I like Ben Griffin a ton here. Like Ben Griffin, Jacob Bridgman, Jackson Koiven. That's the business I want to be in here at the top.
Yeah, I kind of think that I'm with you where like Koiven, there's a chance that a year from now we view Koiven as the best player of everyone who's in this field right now. And
I mean, could you look at it right now and say that he's the best player in this field right now?
No, I think you have to say that Goddard, Griffin, Mitchell, and Keegan are better players, but that doesn't mean that those guys are in better form than Koiven is right now. So
I don't think you can say that about Keith Mitchell. I really don't.
Oh man. Eh, Which of the two just top 10 at the US Open?
Keith Mitchell did, but now we're pointing at one event. Jackson Koiven's last 5 starts on the PGA Tour as an amateur.
Mm-hmm.
His worst finish is T23 at the US Open.
That is very good. I think that you're being unfair to Keith. Keith has 2 top 5s in his last 5 starts. He's one of the best drivers in the world. His iron play has kind of joined that, right? Like, think of Keith 2 years ago. It was like, man, if this guy can ever figure out the irons, like his driver's so damn good. Well, his irons are now almost as good as his driving is. He very clearly has this like mental block when he gets into contention, but man, the guy is constantly playing really well. And from a pure just like who's going to go make me 6 birdies a day perspective, I would take Heath over everyone in this field.
I don't know, man. Koiven could just be better than everyone already. Like
That's
Keith
possible,
Mitchell's like
but
Keith Mitchell's essentially just the worst Chris Gotterup.
He's a better iron player than Gotterup.
He can be. He's consistently a better iron player, but when we see Gotterup make, you want to talk about birdie runs, Gotterup loves a birdie run.
Yeah, they're both quite good in my birdie rate over expectation data.
But with Koiven, like Koiven's made what? So I said those 5 PGA starts. T23 is his worst one. He has 3 top 10s and another 11th place finish, which was at this course a year ago. He's better now than he was a year ago.
He is so good. He's so good. All I hear now is like, I just hear Tim in the background going, yes, this is why I picked him to win the US Open. So you're making his argument for him.
Well, this isn't the U.S. Open is the
No,
whole
it's
thing
not.
where, he doesn't have to play against the best players in the world. He gets to play against, Ben Griffin and Jacob Bridgman, who, again, I like, but I think there's a way you can fit all these guys in a lineup is what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, that's possible. And I do think that like the talent is, there's going to be such a big and severe like teardrop in talent that I definitely think that like the 9K guys are better relative to the 8K guys, more so than like the 7Ks are to the 6Ks. And so this like very heavy studs and duds approach, I think I'm going to be on board with. One question before we kind of build out the rest of this, how popular do you think Koiven's going to get?
No idea. I mean, this is your area. You're the one who does the ownership projections. I could see him being vastly, he's an easy second man in on any of these lineups. So if we just kind of step back and look at it, that if everyone is going to make the choice between, I do think that Gotterup and Griffin are going to be your 2 highest owned guys. Does that make sense? Okay, you know what?
Griffin, yes.
Griffin is going to be your highest owned guy.
Yes, that I definitely agree with. I don't know if Gotterup will get there as well. I think like after that, the most popular guys might be like down in the 7K range. Might go Kim, Hoey, Berger. I think Novak is going to be very popular this week. Just guys who like are at prices that we typically see them, and we typically think that they can be, good players at that price range. The harder clicks are the guys who are usually 7K, but because this is a weak field, now they're 9.1 like Eric Cole or 9.5 like Jacob Bridgman. And so I think that's 8.8 for Pearson Coody when he's been
terrible
6.2 or 5.8 in some recent events. It's going to be a lot harder for the field to click those guys.
So if we just track it by odds, I think that I don't know how much of the process goes into it for you doing that. Like, is that a part of your process of tracking who's going to be the highest owned, that if you see guys crash in terms of odds throughout the week, like, oh, they must be pretty popular?
Yeah, it's part of the process, but I also think that that's largely baked into the DraftKings price itself. And so, like, honestly, I think the biggest like signal that I use is where have guys been in similar fields at similar price points in the past, and that makes Koiven a lot harder for me to kind of identify from an ownership perspective this week, because we don't have a big sample, obviously, of how the field treats Jackson Koiven in a PGA Tour event.
So from what I'm seeing on the odds board, Koiven has gotten bet up a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. He goes from like 27 to 24 over the course of a Monday morning to when we're recording now. Tom Kim has gone from 40 to 33. Potgieter's dropped from like 65 to 45. Thought that was interesting. Denny dropped a whole bunch. Novak dropped a whole bunch. And then you have like Gim going the other way, Sung Jae going the other way. Michael Kim has now dropped. Berger has now dropped. Jackson Suber went from like 90 to 1 to 55 to 1 very quickly. Griot went from 80 to 65. So I think that those are probably the guys from that mid-range that if we were going to pair them up. So this Griffin and Koiven lineup leaves you with $7,500 left that you could almost fill it out with those guys in particular. Potgieter, Berger, Suber, 77. Who was the other one I said?
Did you say Kim?
I didn't say Michael Kim. His number has improved a little bit, so we can just throw him in. Like, that's going to be a pretty chalky lineup.
Yeah, I would think so. I think I'm not entirely sure about Potgieter because I do think, one of the reasons why I don't look a ton at like outright odds and movement for ownership is because I do think the field at this point understands that making an outright bet is different than playing someone on DraftKings, especially in an event with a cut. And like, people understand Potgieter is a high risk, high reward play. That doesn't mean they're always going to flock to him. So like, I would guess that Hoey and Novak are both more popular than Potgieter.
Potentially so. I do think that maybe you're right in terms of the betting market being that, hey, we've seen Potgieter win on tour and just, he won Detroit last year. He won something before that too. He won something else, didn't he? No, he lost.
No, he lost in the playoff.
That's right. Either way, just taking a look at him, it feels like he has win equity. So I understand that from the betting market. But someone like Jackson Suber, if he's been bet down that much already, now I guess that his price point wasn't that far behind a lot of the other people he's now priced with. So maybe the DraftKings pricing got it right and his initial odds just got it wrong. And that by the time the pricing came out, that had already been adjusted. But you don't always see that.
Yeah, that was really well said. I also think with Suber, like, sometimes you see a guy play really well a couple weeks and the field clearly has some hesitation on him. And then he plays really well again. And then the field is like, okay, I guess this guy really is just this good now. And then they finally go to him. So I do think that like timing wise, this is the point where we should start to see Suber finally catching on from an ownership perspective, more so than he has given how well he's played.
All right. So let's try to build this out again. The thing that I want to get to here is if we try to figure out where Koivu is at, right now, we're going to take a look at the other guys around him. So it seems like you and I both like Griffin more than Goddard and Mitchell, correct?
Yes.
And then if we go to the nines, I think that Koivu and Bridgman are the two best plays here. Now, who do you think that you like better in the 9K range versus who do you think that the field is going to like better in the 5K range or the 9K range?
That's a good question. I know who I'm not gonna like and who I think the field might like. I was very ready to say that Eric Cole was going to be one of the most popular, if not the most popular plays this week until he didn't have a good Sunday at the Travelers. So that might ruin it a little bit, but I do still think he's going to be a pretty popular click, and I'm probably not going to go there. I think Keegan is a pretty good play. I'm not sure how the field is going to feel about Keegan. Do you have any thoughts there?
I just find it difficult to believe that people will look at $9,700 and see Bridgman and Koivu for $200 and $300 less and just not take them instead. Maybe I'm just overrating Bridgman, but he's having a better year than Keegan Bradley.
Yeah, I might be underrating Bridgman. So let me take a quick look at what Bridgman. Yeah, I guess his game has returned a little bit. We finally saw the iron play good again up in Canada, and actually the putter spiked twice for the first time since that run in March that he was on. So yeah, I think I would now say that I was probably more on the side of underrating Bridgman than you were overrating him, and I think he'll be more popular than my initial thought. Here's
something to look at too with Bridgman when you bring up the rabbit hole again. So he lost strokes on approach last week, right? You see that like minus 0.15 that per round. That's no good. Minus 0.62. His irons are gone. His putting is gone. Check out his round by round splits. I think that this is important to look at from time to time because you might be able to find some underrated players. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he lost 2.46 strokes on approach in round one.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
And he lost off the tee, gained off the tee every other day. And then, 1.2 on approach in the final round, half a stroke. He lost 4 strokes putting in round 2 as well. So just 2 bad instances. Now, obviously, if he does that again, he's not going to win or even come close. He might miss the cut if that happens again. But the fact that he was able to regroup, get himself back together, and start doing the things that we like to see again in rounds 3 and 4, I think is way more encouraging than if he had done that in rounds 1 and 2 and then sucked on the weekend.
Yeah, the one area that I'll push back on this is it would mean a lot less to me if that like really bad approach round came because he had one awful hole and he was fine the rest of the way. He did have one very bad hole. He lost 1.27 on the 4th of round 1, but for the most part, it was bad iron swing after bad iron swing. And even though it was in round 1 rather than round 4, I still don't love the fact that, he was that lost for an entire round with his approach play. And I think that it's not like, this major red flag, but I don't think that it's affecting his recent data in like an unfair way, even though it was an outlier round, because it wasn't an outlier hole. It was a full round of bad swings.
Sure, but you don't think that there's anything to he got better every day and then peaked in round 4 that he slowly whatever was wrong with him, he seems to have righted again.
I do think there's something to that. Yeah. And that's definitely kind of a feather in his cap, if you will. But I don't know if that's enough for me to like totally disregard what he did in round 1. In other words, like it's this kind of goes to one of my like favorite books of all time is just like finding patterns and randomness, being fooled by randomness. In that, yeah, it looks like he started really poorly and each day got a little bit better and figured out a little bit more. It's also possible that he's just been struggling a little bit with the approach play, and it just so happened that was the pattern. But like he might still not really know what he figured out, and he still might immediately struggle and not be feeling super confident with his approach play.
Sure, but if we're trying to make a gamble on some of these guys, that what would you rather gamble on? The guy whose stats were crippled by one bad round, who had been trending back to his former form again and can spike with the putter. This would be like him versus Keegan Bradley or hell, even JT Poston or even Jordan Spieth and Eric Cole down in this range too, that it feels like his upside right now. And I get that Poston won at Memorial and he's won this tournament before. So that's going to bake him into a certain level of ownership in here. But if I'm trying to project out who could win this tournament, I feel more confident that Bridgman can win over those guys right now.
I agree compared to Poston. I don't know if I agree compared to Keegan. Poston's a really interesting one, by the way, because like talking about someone who had one crazy hole that really affected his entire like week-long statistics, it was Poston at the Travelers. And so I wonder how much ownership he's going to get, because if he just had a decent finish, given he won the Memorial and then finished 4th at the U.S. Open, I do think that he would have been one of the more popular plays as well this week. So very curious to see how the field treats him.
I think that he'll be more popular than Bradley. I think he'll be more popular. I don't know what people think of Spieth anymore.
I don't either. And I don't know what I think of Spieth anymore. So I have no idea what to do there.
But it's to me, I mean, even if you want to include Poston in it, I hate to say this about Spieth, but it feels like you have your Goddard, Ben Griffin talent level 1 and 2 in that range. And then everyone down to Poston is kind of in the same sort of bucket. And I think that I personally think that Koiven should be considered, above Keith Mitchell. I think he's underpriced for what you might be able to get out of him and his talent alone. And then you have this like Spieth through. Matt Wallace is getting a lot of credit for doing well in Italy, but Brennan and Sungjae, like that's sort of a tier to me too. It's like 92 to 84. And then you're just into names. Like it could be any one of these guys.
Yeah. I like that like segmentation that you just did there.
But who do we like from this upper 8K range then? Like, how would you power rank? Like, if we say like right here, and Spieth is the top of this tier. This is up on the screen if you're listening audio wise. And now that you can watch a video both on Apple and Spotify, hey, you can just switch over and do that if you want to. If you don't want to, I don't really care. But here we are, just so you're familiar with it. That of this grouping, like for me, it's Tom Kim, and it's not close.
Yes, agree. I like the fact that we have seen some spikes from him. I liked that we saw the emotion from him. This is going to sound ridiculous, but like we saw TGL Tom Kim show up a little bit at the U.S. Open, and maybe a better way to put it is we saw President's Cup Tom Kim show up at the U.S. Open. I really liked seeing that. I liked seeing the fact that he was good in Canada too. This wasn't like just totally out of the blue at the U.S. Open. So it does seem like his game is trending in the right direction. I like the fact that it was an all-around performance at the U.S. Open and a mostly all-around performance in Canada, where approach, around the green, and putting were all there in both events. He was also very good off the tee at the U.S. Open. So it does seem like Tom Kim is finding his game again and finding his mental approach to golf as well again. And that's really exciting. And I think that gives him a ceiling that's just kind of head and shoulders above the other guys in this range.
Additionally, while he has struggles in terms of strokes gained off the tee. His accuracy is still very good.
Yeah, I mean, he gained over half a stroke per round at the U.S. Open, and obviously all of that is coming from his accuracy because he's not gaining anything on the field distance wise.
Well, I that could work hand in hand with him being so accurate with those gigantic fairways that if he's hitting every single one, which he probably did, that the rollout he's going to get at Shinnecock Hills versus what you would have saw in more of the waterlogged TPC Toronto would be play a bit of a difference.
Very fair, but that would also show up in the distance numbers, and it didn't. Like he was totally neutral distance wise. So everything that he gained at the U.S. Open was through accuracy.
Do you have his stats on driver versus non-driver of those two events?
No, I do not.
Because I'd be curious about that, whether he was hitting driver all of the time at the U.S. Open or not. And then like knowing that, hey, I can just hit a 3-wood or a 5-wood or 7-wood, and it's just going to roll out to where my driver would normally go, and I can take all the danger out of play.
Especially with some of the slopes at Shinnecock, where like a lot of the guys were doing that. They were just all hitting to the same spot and trusting the slope to take it where they wanted it.
So I have Tom Kim rated as the best of this range. Where would you go?
I would agree with Tom Kim there. And then beyond that, like, man, you're either put it this way, you're putting your trust in something that you don't want to put all of your trust in. So like if you go with Thor Bjornsson here, you're kind of just going with the underlying talent because he hasn't been anywhere near as good of late as he was early in the season. He did have a decent finish at the Schwab, but for the most part, it's been really, really up and down, and mostly down since, back in March in the spring. And so that's a little bit concerning. Then you go, I think Fowler is going to project probably the best of this group for most sites and things of that nature. And so he might get some ownership, but he too really hasn't been in form of late, was better at the Travelers, but still hasn't, done anything like what he did in that little 3-event stretch where he had 3 straight top 10s in April and May. And then the guy who stands out in a lot of my numbers here is Doug Gim. And I do think that like his projection is fair. He's been extremely accurate. He's a very good approach player, but goodness gracious, Doug Gim at $8,600 is a little bit of sticker shock to me. And I don't know if I can possibly say that he's the best player in this range. So I think I'm with you that Tom Kim is the guy here. And beyond that, I have hesitance on basically everybody.
I like Doug Gim enough, but if you listed him at $7,400, he'd probably feel like, yeah, good pricing.
Yes, that's like basically earlier when I talked about the fact that like I think when you think about, okay, who's getting ownership this week, it's guys who are priced in their usual price range. Doug Gim is like the perfect counter example to the Andrew Novaks and the Daniel Bergers and Rico Hoey, who are where we are accustomed to seeing them, even though this is a weaker field. Whereas because of the weaker field, Doug Gim got this like $1,000 price boost that is he any more deserving of than that group of players that I just talked about? Maybe a little bit, but I kind of think not.
Brennan has played well with these shorter courses recently.
He has, and he's certainly one of those guys that I will always point to as, hey, when the field is just looking at percentage of fairways hit, but accuracy, the skill itself of being able to hit the ball where you want and to be able to control your misses is actually the skill that translates. I'm always going to be more on him than the field. So I would expect him to be pretty low owned this week. And I'm going to have interest because it's not just that, but also he scores really well. And if he happens to get in contention, I trust him a lot more than most of the guys in this field because there are a lot of guys in this field who have shockingly bad contention performance scores.
No, I mean, that's probably why they're playing in the John Deere.
How about Ryo Hisatsune at negative 1.1? For context, like the really good numbers are 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. The bad numbers like Keith Mitchell, negative 0.6. Ryo Hisatsune is negative 1.1. You do not want to be trusting Hisatsune when he's in the mix to actually win a golf tournament.
Which is sad because this seems like a great course for him. Accuracy, irons, pray he can make some putts.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also think that like, are we giving him too much credit for the really good stretch of golf that he played early in the year? Because since the Valero that started on April 5th, he hasn't gained a full stroke and a half per round in any event this year. He's still been decent, still has several good finishes, but nothing close to the level of play we saw from him early in the year.
No, but he has been playing in better tournaments, in fairness. So when you take a look back, I mean, like he played the Travelers, US Open, and Memorial. He wasn't very good in any of those. He did make the cut at the US Open, so that's a positive. Made the cut at Memorial, too. I think he finished dead last of everyone who actually made the cut at Memorial, because there was a cut. But like 66th at the Schwab ain't no fun. He was all right at the CJ Cup, top 20, PGA Championship. He makes the cut like every single, I don't know if he's missed a cut this year. He missed a cut at the Sony to start the year. He's made every cut since.
So yeah, maybe we're not overrating him too much, and I definitely agree that he's a good fit. We'll see what the field does, because he might be one of those guys where like I'm not going to be interested unless he's really low owned. If he's popular by in any way, I will be very enthusiastically fading him and hoping that this is his first miscut since the Sony.
A lot of it really just has to do with this. Look how terrible his putting has been.
Yeah, but when he was spiking early in the year, look how good his putting was. And so I think like those really, really good performances early in the year, they might have just been a product of totally unsustainable putting spikes from him that we shouldn't expect to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, and we're more used to seeing him in the big red than the very deep green, although he's done it. You know, he's gone through stretches of having a really hot putter in the past. These are always the more difficult guys to go through in my mind when I'm trying to parse out, like, is someone a good putter or a bad putter? Like, if 60% of your rounds are like hilariously negative, but 35% of your rounds are like really positive, there's very few break even weeks, then I just have no idea what's going on.
Oh, I think that tells you that the guy's putting struggles are not mechanical. They're all right up here. If he thinks he can make the 6-footer, he can. If he thinks he's going to miss the 4-footer, he will.
So is that the Scotty Scheffler problem?
I think it definitely has been at times. I think Scotty went through a period where his alignment was atrocious, and you knew that because like every time he missed a putt, he'd look at Ted Scott like, that didn't do what we thought it did. That moved left. And it was like, no, we watched that move left to right. It just didn't get back to the hole. And so like he clearly, I think I have the direction right there where like he was very clearly aiming probably 2 balls left of where he thought he was on every single putt. But then when he switched to the mallet, that seemed to really kind of strain itself out. And so I don't know what the recent bugaboo has been, but man, those short putts are missing at a very high rate again for him.
So we jump back in. We see Matt Wallace just after Sungjae. Sungjae, I could see winning this event. I could see him coming dead last. I have no way. His irons are so bad that he feels untouchable, but once every 8 weeks, he just kind of shows up. Maybe you bet him as first round leader. I don't know, but I'm not touching him here.
Man, when he first came back, it was like, oh man, we might have Sungjae's irons back. And then nope. The more he's played, just like the more he's totally ruined that thought. So yeah, I think I'm with you. I probably can't touch Sungjae here because the problem is no matter how well he drives it, no matter how many putts he makes or how often he chips in, you just can't win a golf tournament if you are consistently losing strokes with approach. And he's not even having rounds right now where he's gaining strokes. So it's a very, very difficult sell.
So if we take a look on average of strokes gained total in this field over the past 3 months, it actually is Blades Brown. Sung-Yul No is second. Koivin is third. Cole Nakajima is just after that. Griffin, Gim, Tom Kim, Mitchell Goddard, there's Suber. Baoshu is down at $7,300. We're just going through the 7K guys right now. That are there ones from this list that stick out? Because you have Mac Meisner and Bezadenhout at the top end, Ewart at the bottom end. You mentioned Rico Hoey. These are all the guys who are in pretty good form right now, but I can't really tell who's going to be popular and who's not. I'm guessing Suber, yes, popular. Baoshu, no popular, because the last time we saw Baoshu, he was bad. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I think Meisner is somebody who does stand out in my projections. I know you just scrolled past him. Your boy Yella Miraju is interesting to me. He keeps popping in. So like my projection models are basically 4 different models that work as an ensemble and then spit something out. So if one is flawed, you hope the next one is flawed in a different way and the next one's flawed in another way, and they all kind of cancel each other out. One of the 4 models that I use absolutely loves Yella Miraju every single week, to the point where I have to look at it and say, like, do I need to tone this one down? And so I don't know what to think of that, but it's certainly going to make me think about him at 7,900 this week.
He has been so bad with his irons outside of that week at the Canadian Open when he was awesome with his irons. But Again, it's like big, he's missing cuts all of a sudden. He's missed 3 of his past 5 cuts. Just even taking a look at what he had been doing earlier in the year, like he was smooth across the board until the end of March, where, yeah, the chipping would get him from time to time, but the ball striking was always there. The putter was there. And just, it doesn't seem like he can get any part of his game on the same page all at the same time outside of playing in Canada.
Yeah, but the counter to that, and this, by the way, is what the model that really loves him is picking up on, is like it's a lot harder to ask a player who doesn't have the type of weeks ever that you need in any given skill set to actually contend, to like go find that ceiling that they haven't shown in any skill set. It's much easier to find a guy who consistently gives you the type of putting weeks that are needed to win, the type of approach weeks that are needed to win. He's pretty consistently driving the ball well, to just put them together when they haven't, and which has been the argument for Spieth all year that I've used. The problem with Spieth is like he very clearly has a mental block where if his approach play is on, he's going to miss every single putt that he looks at. If he's making putts, it's because those putts are for par, because his ball striking is a mess that week, and he just has to make Spieth par after Spieth par. So I don't think that Yellow Miraju has that mental block. I don't think he has the track record where we could possibly say that he has that mental block that we can now pretty confidently say Spieth does. But so yeah, I think that I probably like Yellow Miraju more than most right now, because I do know the data, especially like 4 of the last 5 weeks, the approach play has been ugly. But I think I'm going to take the signal of how often we have seen win on tour level approach weeks from him, and just kind of let that outweigh the fact that recently it's been pretty bad, because even amidst that really bad run of approach play, as you said, his irons were dynamite in Canada.
So the rest of this range of the 7,000. So you like Yellow Miraju, Bez, Meisner, Michael Kim. Like Pendrith feels like a lost cause at this point. He's just been bad. So we'll see what happens with him. I love Blades Brown. He's my favorite play of this range, especially from a DraftKings scoring perspective. We hit on Suber, who's probably going to be pretty popular. Is there a chance Johnny Kiefer could ever chip or putt? I'll just take putting. I'll leave you chipping. Just give me some putts.
Yeah, I mean, man, he very recently showed some real signs, not necessarily of like starting to make putts, or especially not to chip, but what we saw at the CJ Cup especially was so exciting from a DraftKings perspective, because yes, the bad putting, the bad chipping, it means he's going to make some bogeys, but goodness, he can light it up with that DraftKings scoring. And the fact that the ball striking has been as good as it's been, just finished 39th at the US Open, where he was outstanding with his ball striking. I definitely think I'm interested in here, because even if he only gives you a 15th place finish or a 20th place finish, because he still can't get the ball up and down when he needs to, like if he's 20th on the leaderboard, he might be 10th in DraftKings scoring. And so from that perspective, I'm definitely interested.
Well, I think that more people are going to go to the top of this range. Like you mentioned, Michael Kim, probably pretty popular. Novak, Suber. I don't know what the field feels about Finau or Berger or Homa, but those are still names that people know in a tournament that maybe not. I am far more inclined to go the Blades Brown, Kiefer, Griot, Kevin Yu, Ben Coles, Baushu, Haotong Lee route here. I'd rather play the bottom part of the sevens than the upper part of the sevens.
Yeah, I think that's also just like, here's a good way to put it. I think if a guy is in the 7Ks in this field and they've been around for a long time, we are pretty confident that they belong in the 7Ks in a field like this. Whereas these young guys, they might not. We don't know yet. Maybe they do. Maybe Blades Brown should be $6,600. Who knows? But I don't think that's the case. I think he's shown us a ton of upside. He might miss the cut as often as someone who belongs in the $6,000 range, but he's going to contend far more often than the guys down there. And so I think Blades, Tom Kim, I think fits this mold as well. We're looking for the guys that if they play well, they're going to give us a really, really good performance. They're going to help vault us to the top of our contest, and not someone who's going to finish 35th.
All right. I'm going to throw up someone's stat report here. I've kind of hidden some of the names of the tournaments, but look at this form. Would you take a guy in this sort of form?
Finish position 19th, 23rd in a major, 29th in tour event, 1 on the Corn Ferry, miscut. Yeah, this guy, can you tell me a price for this guy?
$7,300, I want to say.
Yes, this seems like a very good play at $7,300.
Here's stats. You can see what he does well and what he doesn't do well.
He doesn't putt well, that's for sure.
He's a guy I've lost a lot of money on over the years, betting like first round leaders and such, but this is the best form Ben Coles has ever been in.
Oh God, it's Ben Coles.
He's like the wedge master.
This also doesn't have his U.S. Open qualifying where he was really good, which I think matters. That's a great 36-hole sample of playing under severe pressure, and he came through there. So, oh man, I guess I'm higher on Coles this week than I expected to be.
He came T44 last year. Somehow he came T44 and gained almost 7 strokes on approach.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I think I was on Coles last year for the same reason that I was on Kuchar. I think he's a really strong wedge player.
Yeah, he is an amazing wedge player.
Yeah.
He hits all the fairways, and he just sticks it to 15 feet every single time and makes 0% of the putts.
Yeah.
But his putting has been better for him recently. like look at this stretch here. Like, this is just all negative. This is all dark red. 5, -5, -4, -4. At least now it's like, yeah, there's the -5 there. There's also a +2, and he won a tournament in the Corn Ferry Tour. I don't have the stats in front of me. I'm guessing he didn't lose strokes putting that week.
If you just showed me this and scrolled through and said, "Who is this?" I would have guessed Rico Hoey.
Well, Hoey's okay. I would have thought the same thing, and then I went through Hoey's like game logs, and he's just been good / bad everywhere recently. It's not the Rico Hoey of last year. Like, just take a look at this.
That's true.
Look at this guy. Like, some weeks his approach is great. Other weeks it's absolutely terrible. Some weeks he's putting. Other weeks he's back to being Rico. The only thing that's relatively consistent for him is that he continues to be a really good driver of the ball 4 out of 5 times.
Yeah, very good driver. And the other thing he's consistent about is being inconsistent, which, hey, we kind of like, right? We like the volatility that gives him a real ceiling. So I think I'm interested there.
When we take a look at the price range, I don't know if I like him more. Like, he is still up there at 7,600. I don't see what makes him a better play than Johnny Kiefer, honestly. Kiefer's
I agree with you. Yes. I think I agree with you there. The other thing I'd say is and this actually applies to Kiefer too. When we're talking about guys like this, where we know that there's a very real floor, we also know that there's a pretty good ceiling for the price in a field like this. The ownership matters a ton, right? Like Tambo does a really good job of kind of like saying all the time, 11% versus 14% doesn't matter. And I would also say, like, for some players, 8% versus 16% doesn't matter. But for these guys, every percentage point matters. If these guys are popular, I want nothing to do with them. If they're contrarian, I think they're amongst the best plays in the field.
But you're talking about a situation where it's popular versus non-popular in not 16 to 8. Like, one guy is going to be 15, the other guy is going to be 3.
Yeah. Or I mean, like 8 versus 16, I think is a big difference for them. Doubling ownership. Obviously not as big of a difference as 15% versus 3%, but 20% versus 10%. 22% versus 8%. That is incredibly important for those guys. Whereas there are other players in the field, particularly like, low volatility, high strokes gain projection players who, yeah, I'd prefer that the guy is 8 or 10% rather than 20 or 22. But even if they're 20 or 22, they're not serving the purpose in my lineup of being that like low owned separator. They're just there because I think they're going to do well. And they can kind of conserve any advantage that the rest of my lineup gives me.
Even to stick down in this like lower $7,000 range, like Nakajima's down here. I mentioned Putnam earlier. Smotherman fits that mold of accuracy and irons. You like Kuchar. I like Ewert. Austin Eckroat, I can always get behind as a flyer. And then we kind of like get stalled out a little bit here. That if we go into the 6K range, is there anyone that you can really think of that not only just to mix in, but like you would feel very comfortable with? Like, I will probably have to gamble on Paul Peterson at some point just because he rates out so well in the main things. And Chandler Blanchet was the other one I was looking at. But outside of that, I don't really know where to look at.
I agree. And I don't think I want to go into the 6Ks. Can we talk about Eckroat for a second? Because he's one of the most fascinating guys, I think, in this field.
Well, I could, for my best ball teams that are remaining in the finals, I could use him to have a good week here. So please tell me something good about him.
Oh, I'm tell you what, I'm rooting for you there. Eckroat's last 2 events, the Charles Schwab and the RBC Canada, he was like, he had some of the most colorful scorecards that I've ever seen in my life. And I think a very important point is in both instances. So at the Charles Schwab, he went 68, 69, 70, 76. Gained strokes on the field in the first 3 rounds, lost over 5 in the final round. Let me get the Canada similar stats on him because I think it was very similar.
Round 1, 1.5 strokes, 3 in round 2, minus 10.5 in round 3.
Yes. Both of those rounds, the first kind of key point here is they were difficult scoring rounds and they were extremely windy rounds. We're not going to, we might get like some wind this week, but I don't think we're going to get as windy of conditions. And we're certainly not going to get as difficult scoring conditions as those rounds. So I think we probably should take more signal from the fact that he gained strokes in 5 of those 8 rounds. And several of them were like really good rounds. And even in some of those rounds where he only gained a little bit, it was like he made the most birdies in the field that day and also had a triple or also had a quad or something like that. Like it was the craziest event and the craziest rounds within those events that we have seen from somebody. So I think he's probably a lot better than his projections are going to be around the industry this week. I think Eckroat's a very, very interesting play.
So here are some interesting details. If you just go up to his graphs from the past 12 months from Eckroat, and it kind of shows what you're seeing right here. Like he dominates versus the field in very easy scoring conditions. And he's like level, easy to average. And when it gets difficult, he's really, really bad.
And that difficult split literally might just be from those 2 rounds where he lost almost 16 strokes in those 2 alone.
Let's take a look at the last 3 years. I mean, the last 3 years is exactly the same on the timetable.
Wow, that's really interesting. So yeah, like I said,
he has 2 wins in that time too.
Yeah, Eckroat might be our guy this week, Pat.
Yeah, hey, listen, he's great in round 1 and round 2 and sucks on the weekend.
Let me see. Does the contention performance score back that up for him?
Well, he has the 2 wins, so maybe it doesn't.
No, he's a good CPS guy. So yeah, I think that round 3, round 4 split hopefully is random and at the very least, like it means that when he's been in contention, that split hasn't held. So I think I'm very much in on Eckroat this week.
And of course, average strokes gained by field strength dominates very weak to weak fields and is bad in everything else.
That's it. He's our guy. What is he? Oh my God, Pat, he's 150 to 1 to win before we even use that special each way.
Well, we can get him each way 3 up to like 225 to 1. I'm in. You sold me.
That's going on the books.
Yeah, the Eck Goat is going in this week. So if we do go down to these 6K guys and just kind of take a look, he's in the 7K range. So I mentioned Peterson. Who was the other one? Peterson. I mean, Shipley. Can Shipley putt? Can that just happen once and he can win like 8 tournaments?
I don't know if the answer is yes. I hope the answer is yes.
There was a guy down here that I did want to go to though. Because he's another guy that I actually need to have a big week for that DraftKings team. It's Chandler Phillips, who was somehow I drafted on one of the teams that made it through. He was very good in Canada, which was very helpful to me.
Do you have it sounds like you've got a very real like live chance to have a huge kind of finish here in best ball?
Let me bring it up. Let's take a look. I'm in 5th place in the big scramble. That's really the only sweat that I have going on. And I think it's me and 2 other guys inside the top 10 right now. I have 6 guys playing this week.
I saw you say that to Justin McMahon on Twitter.
I think I'm a spot behind Justin at the moment. Now let's see here. Active. Apparently I don't have any drafts going on right now.
What's that first place payout?
$40,000.
That's nothing small right there.
No, that'd be nice
for sure.
So let's see. I can bring it up right here and share that tab. All right. So I have 4 entries. So I'm in the finals of these 3 tournaments. I'm currently in. I have 2 teams of the 25-man final. I'm in 6th and 17th right now. So I'm winning 5,000 with that top team. But I'm only 130 points behind first place.
Okay.
Which I don't mind. And he doesn't have 6 guys going this way. Although the 6 guys doesn't really mean anything unless all 6 guys make the cut for me. In a weird way, like I'll get 2 days of extra points at an easy course, which I think is helpful. Maybe Chandler Phillips isn't on this team. Yeah, he's not actually.
I think that first place guy is Sam from ETR, who does some of their ownership stuff. So no surprise to see him at the top. Yeah,
let's see. Yeah, so yeah, he got kind of screwed because Rasmus Højgaard and Chris Kirk should really be playing in this tournament, and they're not for whatever reason. So he's got Davis, Denny, Nico. Oh, this is helpful. Nico just WD'd on him. That sucks. Poston, Bridgman, Burns, and Sue. So he's down to 4 guys this week. I hope everyone else has Nico, even better. So with me, I got my 6 guys, but my 6 guys are Cole, Goddard. I too am missing out on Chris Kirk not playing, and I assumed he would be playing.
Yeah.
Keith Mitchell. Don't know why Matt McCarty's not playing, but he isn't. Pearson Cootie, Michael Brennan, and Michael Kim I have in the field.
So that's why you keep bashing Keith Mitchell. You just want to reverse jinx him to a win here to win you 40 grand.
I would guess that Keith Mitchell is the most common guy on all these teams.
I think you
Keith
can.
Mitchell's on that team.
I'll send you a link. You'll be able to know.
Okay, even better. But yeah, Keith Mitchell just keeps popping up. This guy, Vince Whaley's crushing it for this guy. Keegan Bradley, Wyndham Clark, Daniel Berger. I wonder who's on my. You see Justin McMahon's just in front of me there. My other team has Chandler Phillips is my best guy.
There you go.
But this is the team that was drafted for these sort of events.
Mm-hmm.
So Phillips, Roy, Meisner, Goddard, Berger, Thorbjornsen, Denny, Spieth. I got like 8 guys in the tournament this week. Unfortunately, it doesn't really help me in signature events.
Yeah, that one should climb though. So
yeah, this team should really make a move. So my whole strategy was making sure I had the 6 guys through at least 6 guys in every event. I do seem to be one of the few who actually accomplished that. And this is the team where I only drafted 20 teams. So ended up with 2 here in the finals. I feel like I can get up to, I guess the guy in first place, that's actually quite helpful that he only has 4 guys going this week and he's 50 points up on the field. He's going to have to fall back, isn't he?
Yeah. Can you click his team again? Because it's surprising when you scroll through his players that he only has 4 guys. Like you mentioned that, he got unlucky that, some didn't show up. But he also he was victimized by Wyndham Clark playing so well this year that now he's no longer playing this week. Whereas, if he didn't get on this really hot streak the last couple of months starting at the CJ Cup, he might be teeing it up here. And so definitely one of those things where you certainly can't control who you have playing because they might do almost too well for you, which is what happened in my final week of the last segment. I didn't get through because Wyndham won and then took off the next week, and I lost by 11 points.
Well, that happens. However, if Wyndham Clark isn't good, this guy doesn't even make this round, and isn't currently in first place.
Yeah, I needed Wyndham to finish second that week, and then I would have been golden.
Yeah, but Nico withdrawing is very helpful to me. I'm not going to lie to you here.
Definitely is, yeah.
And I share a lot of the same guys as everyone else, like 2v2. So if Keith Mitchell and Michael Brennan want to miss the cut, that's actually less hurtful for me. What I need is Chandler Phillips to play with. Chandler Phillips finishes inside the top 10. I'm doing really well here.
There you go. Go Chandler Phillips, go.
Who knew that that's what it would come down to? I think I'm pretty dead. I think I'm dead in the scramble. Let's see, I'm in 68th or 63rd place. Yeah. Not much happened for me on this. I haven't even looked at this one. It's been so far back. Let's see. Smalley, Griot, Eckroat. So I got 2, 3 with Mitchell. Penge just being a 0 sucks. I have 6 guys, 7 guys in this tournament at least. That's a Scotty Spieth Ludwig team. That's crazy.
So yeah, it's go Chandler Phillips, go Austin Eckroat. If Austin Eckroat has a big week, we're all going to have big weeks.
So I like that. I wonder in the PME Classic, I'm 6th out of 8. I'm not doing well. I don't even think I have 6 guys this week. I have Eckroat in that one too. A lot of Eckroat, as it turns out. Eckroat, Meisner, Cole, Griot, Kevin Yu. Oh, Spieth. Spieth playing in this event does give me the 6.
How many are in this final?
8.
That's really cool.
Yeah, well, we got paid out for the last segment too.
Yeah.
And everything is this one's my tournament, so everything's very flat across the board. So if you made the finals, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I love that.
But I'm way back.
You can still climb a little bit.
Yeah, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I do have 6. So again, the whole. I do think that when we revisit this next year, that not that it wasn't the strategy anyway, but the overemphasis of not because a lot of the guys you need those hybrid players. They were always going to be the most valuable. Bridgman, Ben Griffin, Michael Kim. JT Poston turned into one of those guys that still play in these events, but give you access to fill out majors and the signature events. But the real strategy, as you can see by a lot of the players who were on some of those teams, especially my teams, Vince Whaley, Chandler Phillips, Austin Eckroat, like guys that just legitimately like might not be good at all, but will play in all these events. Like you kind of need them. They don't do what happened to you and play themselves out of them.
Yes, and they play all the birdie fests, which I think is probably why it's so important, right? And you need 6 when every single guy is going to get you 100 points just for showing up, and that helps for sure.
All right, let's build one lineup to get out of here because I want to switch up the format a little bit today of going through everything, trying to figure out the ranges that we like, and then boom, we can try to really pummel down on what we want to build for a lineup. So let's just do that and see what we got cooking here. Where do you want to go with this lineup?
Well, it sounds like we've got a couple places that we're really confident in at least one way. So like Koivu, Tom Kim, Blades Brown. I think it's worth asking, like, if we have Tom Kim, do we want Blades Brown? If we have Blades, do we want Tom Kim? Or is that a little bit too much boom or bust from those guys? And maybe we want to pick the top one of them. I think it's probably okay to have both. We just then need to be aware of the fact that our final 3 guys probably need to be more on the, I wouldn't say safe side, because I don't think you can find safe guys in this field, but more along the like low variance. We know they're a fit. We know they're in decent form type players.
Okay. So we have those 3 in. I mean, I told you I like Bridgman and Ben Griffin. If we put Ben Griffin in, that leaves us with 69. That's probably not enough, right?
Yeah, I would rather not go all the way up now.
So now we could go, let's say Bridgman. And now we have 7,400, which leaves us in that range of guys that we kind of like. That, I mean, Griot's been good lately.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Grillo and Kiefer. I wouldn't mind Berger here. I don't love Berger. I think he'll probably be a little bit overowned, but if I was going to play Berger, it's a lineup that has the boomer bust with Tom and Blades.
Like, do you just play, or you could do something like instead of playing Griot, I mean, this is a bit more boom bust, but in terms of overall upside, like Hao Tong's pretty good.
I think we can maybe it's what we just had, but put Coles in instead of Grillo.
Coles instead of Grillo? I mean, you go Grillo and Coles, leave $200 on the table.
We could. Do you think Grillo's a better play than those 74 guys? Because I think and even 75. Because I think I'd rather have Berger.
I think I'd rather. Man, look at these Grillo numbers, man. He's been good. He's been making cuts, which is very helpful.
True. Yeah, he's been better than I was giving him credit for. Definitely.
Yeah. And the playoff loser here last year, something to prove coming back. Whereas Berger has been, I mean, he has some sort of consistency, but then he's like terrible at the same time.
Yeah.
He has 1 finish inside the top. He has 0 top 20 since his T2 at Bay Hill.
Yeah. One other thing I'd say here is like, because of the start that we have with Tom and Blades, like this is not a lineup to put Austin Eckroat in. But if you didn't want the Tom Kim and Blades Brown start and you wanted something a little bit more structurally sound up top, like then you go to an Eckroat type. And so I just had a feeling that, someone's going to be watching this thinking, you guys just talked up Eckroat for 20 minutes. Why aren't you including him in this lineup? And I think that's why.
So Paul Peterson and Austin Eckroat.
Oh, God.
Do you like Paul Peterson or Chandler Phillips better?
I would prefer Chandler Phillips, but I would really prefer to not include either of them.
What about Chandler Blanchet?
Slightly better, but I still think like it.
Look at this guy. This guy's fire. When he's good, he's great, by the way.
That's true. I do like that aspect of it. But
Top
isn't that the point of
T15, T8? Oh, this guy's unstoppable. Cut every other week. Don't worry about him being cut every other week. But
yeah, there you go.
See what's Blanchet hasn't been doing much since Puerto Rico when he went on that nice run. Won me. Listen, he cashed me 140 to 1 first round leader. So I'm gonna be. He's in my good books for life, I think.
Definitely.
And what did Paul E. Peterson do here? Yeah, he loves getting cut. Oh, he was T11. Oh, look at that. T5, T11. You got to take this guy in alternate events only.
Just enough to keep you going back.
Yeah, so you could throw those guys in a line. You probably don't need to go as low as Chandler Phillips, but this is where I think Hao Tong can play. Like if you want to just patrol down in this bottom section.
Yeah, and then this is the type of lineup where you want to go get Ben Griffin at the top.
Yeah, but you could go with Ewert, Kuchar, and throw him in here as well. Because I think that there is going to be a move to go to, like, if you have these 2 wins, like, oh, well, I can throw in a Michael Kim. And you start to fall back on a similar lineup construction as a lot of people. That if we throw Nakajima in here, now we have 95 per player. We can make that work pretty easily with Tom Kim and We just use Tom Kim. We get rid of Tom Kim. We can put in Jackson Koivin and go with Michael Brennan if we want to.
Or Doug Gim. I would say we probably don't need Nakajima in this lineup unless you might really like him. Are you seeing something that I'm not with Nakajima?
Yeah, let's do a quick Nakajima in here because he was someone who popped up on the research show a ton. And someone told me today the audio got fucked up on that show, and I went and listened to it, and they were right. It did. I don't know. I know what happened now, but there's nothing I can really do to fix it at this point. So yeah, check out Nakajima here.
It's all putting, man.
It's not that's a lot of green on that screen.
Did I click like the wrong Nakajima or something?
Positive.
Okay,
he sucks chipping, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah, there's green, but these numbers are small, and they're especially small once you adjust for the field strength.
Sure, the driving is good, the approach is the putting is fine, the chipping sucks. This guy's down at 72. He's got some good finishes. 3 top 30s in his past 4 starts.
Yeah.
At Myrtle Beach and Schwab, both courses which will over-index your wedges versus the Canadian Open and Byron Nelson as well.
I'm not opposed to it, but I think we can do better.
I don't know. I don't know if we can do better. That's pretty good. Low Japanese of the week.
And the rest of the lineup is very strong. So if you're right about Nakajima, this lineup should do quite well.
Well, it doesn't need to be Nakajima is the thing. It could be anyone at $7,300 with this lineup construction.
Yeah. I think
it could be Rio again. It could be Kevin Yu. It could be Ben Coles.
Yeah. I prefer the guys that we already had in that range to Nakajima.
So you like you prefer this like Koivin lineup better?
Yes, but I think the Ben Griffin lineup is also quite solid. I would just have a slightly different, final 2v2 or something like that to it.
All right. Well, I'm going to enter this one, and then you give me your final 2v2, and I'll play that one as well.
Okay, let's see. So if we bring that one back up, I would say let's take Brennan out, and let's take Haotong out. And now let's go...
Yella Miraju Hitsatsune? That doesn't work. Never mind.
And Meisner.
You go Meisner, old Yella?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. This is also the type of lineup because, we do have the Boomer Bust Eckroat, but it's pretty solid at the top. So I think instead of Yella Miraju Meisner, like this would be a pretty good spot to play Hoey, and then you could play someone in the low 8s. Like I like Davis Thompson here. We might have enough for...
If we get rid of Yella Miraju and Meisner, you could go Davis, Thompson, Michael Kim.
Yeah, or I would go Thompson and Hoey, but I think Michael Kim is also a very solid option here.
You could take one guy who can putt versus another guy who can't putt.
That's very true.
And the guy who holds the scoring record of all scoring record. Although Davis Thompson, I think, actually beat his overall total that year.
I mean, Davis Thompson was insane that year. The scoring as a whole that year was just wild.
It happens when the conditions, they did start growing out the rough here.
Mm-hmm.
I think after that Davis Thompson year. But Davis Thompson also chipped in 5 times. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's also weird because you would think that, okay, they grew out the rough, so the stroke gain driving accuracy signal should strengthen as a result. But last year was actually the weakest accuracy signal that we've seen here in quite a few years. So I think to some degree, that's just going to play out one year to the next. You're going to get some just small sample variance when you're looking at 1 year at a time, and it's probably going to return to accuracy being a really strong predictor here.
I thought that was an interesting trend to look at, was just guys feeling far more comfortable just over a 5-year period. Now, you kind of mentioned this off the top, but do you really think that is because guys are just more comfortable? Guys are just better with their driver now?
I think it's less about guys being better with their driver, and I think it's more just like guys have information now that says, hey, even if you're not super confident that you're going to hit this fairway, you're still better off hitting driver because, number one, when you miss, if you've missed with driver, you're in a better spot. But number two, and more importantly, when you do hit the fairway, and like if you're clubbing down from driver to 3-wood, it's not like you go from hitting 50% of fairways to hitting 90% of fairways. You're probably going from 55 to 65 or 55 to 70 or something like that. So it's actually like a very small amount of the time that you do hit the fairway when you otherwise wouldn't by clubbing down. And when you hit the fairway, now you have a very great scoring opportunity with a wedge compared to if you had laid back and you were hitting 9-iron in or something like that. So I think that's what it's more about.
All right. Alex Blickle, ftnfantasy.com. Thanks for being on, man.
Absolutely.
I after the Open, I don't know if we're going to keep the DraftKings show going or maybe do a smaller segment on it.
That sounds good to me. And sooner than we all realize it, we'll be back in football season.
That's the whole thing. I need to give myself like a little bit of runway for football. Tuesdays might be for football now.
I would love that.
But, if enough people want the show to go on, we'll do it in some sort of form, even if it's not an hour, maybe it's half an hour or something like that. And I'll cobble it together as its own standalone video, but it's a part of a different podcast where we do some football stuff as well. Because you've just written the almanac over at FTN Fantasy, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Just finished up Tampa chapters and Carolina chapters. And I'll tell you, it's a lot more fun to talk about the Tampa Bay roster than the Carolina roster because that got a little bit hard to find words to say about Carolina when you've already written like 8,000 words on the Panthers.
So give me one interesting tidbit per team and someone we should be looking at or just completely staying away from.
I don't know if this directly leads to like you should have a lot of this guy or not, but the thing that I find most interesting about either of these teams is Tampa ran the least amount of outside zone in the league each of the last 2 years, and they were awful at it. Like we're talking 2.5 yards per carry with outside zone when the league average is like over 4.5 with that type of blocking scheme. In comes Zach Robinson from Atlanta. And guess what? They led the league by a mile in outside zone usage. So I think this is either going to go very poorly for Bucky Irving or very well for Bucky Irving. I don't really know which it's going to be because I do think the offensive line as a whole is strong and they have the talent. Like their center has even said, if the new OC wants us to really kind of change everything we do and go into an outside zone blocking scheme, a wide zone scheme, we've got the guys to do it. So in the locker room, it sounds like they feel confident they can do it. I don't know if the numbers say that, but I also think it's, there's something to be said about the fact that they were probably really bad at it because they just never worked on it because they knew that they weren't going to call those runs very often. So I think it should be good for Bucky. But it's something to watch out for. And the final thing I'll say there is while Bucky and the entire Tampa backfield did not do well with outside zone, in Pittsburgh, they did run a lot of outside zone last year. Jaylen Warren was great at it, and Kenny Gainwell was terrible at it. So this struggle for Bucky is definitely not, an anti-Bucky pro Gainwell stance. I think the danger for Bucky is that Gainwell's going to have a lot of the passing down work, but I don't think we'll see Gainwell eat into the carries here in Tampa the way he did last year with Jaylen Warren.
All right. That will do it for me. Go check. When does that come out? Do you know?
July 8th. I know it's supposed to be done. I don't know if that's when it's released.
All right. You send me an early copy. Okay. And then I can just like repeat those facts and people will be like, man, Pat really does research this year.
There you go. We'll do that.
All right. Rabbit hole, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo, code Mayo at Underdog and coolbet.com. If you're in Canada, outside of Ontario, in order to take advantage of the bonus, hit the description. All right. The cheat sheet will be out on Wednesday. My show with Keith will be out on Wednesday. So stay tuned to all of that. Smash the like, sub to the channel while you are here. Thanks for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. See you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!